Yeah, today we're joined by Spencer Lucas, the director of the Sudbury chapter of CFI, the Center for Inquiry. How you doing, Lucas?
Oh, great, thanks.
Um, this is a fairly new chapter in Sudbury I'm really interested in. But first, could you give me a little bit of just a quick bio on yourself? Just a few minutes. Tell me a bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm originally from Wales. I immigrated with my family when I was 7 to Northern Ontario, to Timmins actually. And I grew up in a non-believing home. So parents were always atheists, certainly in my lifetime. And my grandparents on my mother's side were also atheists. In fact, I remember the first time that I ever heard the word humanism or humanist was from my maternal grandmother when I was 8 or 10 or something like that, and I'd never really heard that word before, and she didn't exactly put it into context. So it was sort of a long time later before I sort of understood what that word meant and properly identified with it. But I think I've always sort of had a skeptical nature, and I think even though I grew up in sort of an atheist home, we never specifically talked about there not being a God. It was just, in some respects, sort of taken for granted. So you weren't told that there wasn't a God. You just, I mean, you could never assume that there was one. It wasn't sort of until I went to school and maybe a few years in that I even knew that religious people existed. I was fairly sheltered and not sort of purposely so, but just my cousins were atheists. Um, and as young kids, you didn't talk about religion. So it wasn't even until maybe I was 8 or so that I knew of religion and that adults believed in this thing called God. And for me, as an 8-year old, it probably sounded like adults believed in Santa Claus. It was that weird to me. And I always found it really strange that these people who were much taller than me and much smarter than me believed in things which I couldn't believe in, that were seemingly magical and, well, quite literally unbelievable. So I think sort of from that time, I had this sort of intense curiosity for religion. I've never lost that. In fact, it's arguably grown over the years, and it's influenced many things I've done when I went to university and eventually kind of gravitated into psychology. The idea of the psychology of belief. Um, Even in my undergrad thesis, I had when I was studying morality, um, I looked at political and religious ideology as independent variables to to look in how people how professionals made or decided factors on moral dilemmas. So it's always been fascinating to me. And probably when I went to TAM, the amazing meeting in 2010, I think it was TAM 8 anyway. One of the largest skeptical conferences internationally. When I walked into that room and saw 1,200 different skeptics, arguably the majority of them atheists, even though it's not particularly an atheist conference. The Venn diagram is overlaps pretty tightly in that community. I think, sort of tongue in cheek, I had a sort of religious experience in the sense that it kind of dawned on me. Oh, it kind of feels good to be in a room with a lot of like-minded people where you can come up to a stranger and start talking about Letter to a Christian Nation by Sam Harris, and you can feel pretty confident, A, they know who Sam Harris is, and B, they've probably read the book and have 1,000 different ideas about it. And that was a new experience for me. I've always been a very out atheist. I used to joke when I was a young kid that when religion would come up, I would always identify as Orthodox, just to get the obvious response Orthodox what? And I would say I'm an Orthodox atheist, and they they would just sort of be left with confusion. I mean, I've always been very vocal about being out, and that's every one of my friends have always known really early on what my worldview is. So soon after that experience at TAM, I started using Facebook as a means for atheist activism, and that eventually led me to the Sudbury Humanist Association. I ended up taking over the group there, and recently in January affiliated with the national organization of the Centre for Inquiry Canada.
Um, so to kick off the opening of the new chapter in Sudbury, you guys had a bus campaign, I believe?
Yeah, we decided January 13th, we invited Justin Tranche up, who is the spokesperson for CFI Canada, to do some media launches on that particular day, and we kicked it off with a couple of events. Besides some media coverage, we had a presentation about the one school system, which was sort of near and dear to the hearts of many people in our organization, and we also kicked it off. That was the first official day of a month of having an ad at the back of a Sudbury bus. And I believe the slogan was "Don't believe in God, you're not alone." So it was pretty benign, low key kind of slogan. We had gathered the group around a while before to discuss different slogans. We actually put 7 of our favorites up for a vote, and that was the one that came out on top. It was interesting because I was kind of worried that it was going to be so non-threatening, so benign, so unprovocative that the media wouldn't be interested, that we wouldn't get any public reaction. And as benign as it was, we got a ton of media coverage, a lot of public reaction. So,
Was that positive reaction, or was it quite mixed? Or
well, it was mixed, as you could probably guess there to be. I think overwhelmingly, it was positive. It was positive in a couple of key areas. I mean, we had just as to sort of a little guide to the metric of interest. We had 99 people on our Sudbury Humanist Association Facebook page the day before we sort of leaped over and became affiliated with CFI Canada. And within 2 to 3 months, that number went up to 150 plus, kind of overnight. So the people were finding us, and 100% of the people that joined our group over that very short period, because that 99, that took about 3 years to develop, 3 or 4 years to develop, and we practically doubled that in about 3 months. So it worked as far as an advertising campaign, and I mean it was more than that. It was also an educational campaign as well for the public. Um, but every single person that joined our group joined it because of the media coverage and not because of the actual sign on the bus. No one person joined our group because they said they saw the physical sign on the back of the bus. They saw the reaction to the sign on the back of the bus.
right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. But we did get some negative reaction. We got it from some interesting sources. There were people posting on Facebook that this was the literal sign, pun intended, of the end times, which surprised me from Sudbury. But you know, we have our fundamentalists like any other community, I'm sure. A small but vocal minority. We had a city councillor who was noted to be really offended by the sign. And when I was talking to somebody in the mayor's office, I kind of deconstructed that offense by really talking about what the sign, the message of the sign was. That there are people who don't believe in God. I mean, that's just a factual statement. And that if you find yourself among those people who don't believe in God, in Sudbury, we have a community for you, so you're not alone. I mean, that is sort of deconstructing that message, which you could break down further as to like we exist, non-believers. We exist in your community and in every community, and so essentially, what I was trying to convey to the mayor's office is this particular city councilor what seemed to be offended by the existence of atheists. And that if you were to substitute any other demographic, uh, you know, um, uh, black Canadians, women, gay people, if I don't think he would vocalize his offense at the existence of these other communities in his city.
Right.
So it was a direct form. I think unintentional. I mean, as far as I know, this is a nice, decent person who was actually a fairly respected city councilor, but it shows you sometimes the insidiousness of prejudice and the um, vaulted position of the religious community and religious privilege.
Right. So, what kind of things do you have on the go for the future? What kind of things will CFI in Sudbury be taking a look at?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things that we want to do. We are doing quite a good job in like I said, in growing the community, and now that we wanted to hit a sort of a certain kind of critical mass of members because like in any organization, there'll be leaders and followers, and so the more people that we had out, the more potential leaders that we had, people who are more active, who want to take a more of a leadership role, and we've hit a certain number of people now where it's making the entire group more viable. So I think that will be good. In keeping with the message of the bus campaign, we really wanted to develop a community. One thing that I heard over and over again was I've always, well, not always been an atheist, but I would hear things like I've been an atheist for a long time. I've always been desperate to belong to a community. I had no idea you guys existed, and I'm thrilled that there's a place that I can go and hang out and sort of let my hair down and be and sort of speak my mind more comfortably. Whereas I mean, a lot of people in our group are not out. They're not out to their coworkers and so on. That there are people who feel probably quite correctly that they'll lose customers and business and so on, or friendships even if they're out. So this is really crucial for them. So we've developed some social networking. We every month we meet at Finn McCool's. We call it Skeptics in the Muck Pub, and every month we have a brunch at the Holiday Inn, which we call Brunch Beyond Belief. So there's a couple of opportunities every single month for people to gather, and it's always really intelligent and engaging and fun conversation. We have speakers every now and again. They're kind of sporadic. We'd like to get that more solidified as time goes on. I also started, I went back to school recently to finish my master's, and I kind of used that as an excuse, given that I'm a student, to start a student club at Laurentian University. There's been 5 or 6 different religious clubs at the university for a very long time. We have, I think, at least 2 different kinds of Christian clubs. a Jewish club, a Muslim club, and one or two others. And there's never been a secular, atheist, agnostic, free-thinking club in Laurentian's history, and I wanted to change that. And we got a group formed uh, just this past school year. We call it the Laurentian University Secular Humanists, or LUSH, which I like. And in during our blast campaign, we had a young guy join us, join the Sudbury CFI group, and he said, "You know what you should do? You should start a university group." And I said, "Well, as it happens, I just started one. Would you like to be the president of that group? Because obviously, it's something that I can't maintain really past next year." So even though he'd only virtually belonged to the Sudbury CFI group for about 15 minutes, uh, he had
Wow.
made some sort of commitment to taking over the Laurentian Humanists in this coming September. So we're really excited to get that off the ground. And even though it'll be a sort of a separate organization to Sudbury CFI, I think it'll be a nice play back and forth. I think it's really important to have a campus group in communities that have colleges and universities. So I think
Right.
we'll be able to help each other out in the future. So we're really looking forward to that.
Well, I appreciate your spending some time with me, Spencer. That really is quite inspiring what's going on in your community. Something's going on in Sudbury. You guys seem to be really well organized, so I guess it certainly points to good leadership in the community. So I thank you for that. Something's
Thank you.
going on in Sudbury that we need to pay attention to.
Great.
So we will check in with you again, if you don't mind.
Yeah, yeah. Check us in again in several months or so and see what we're up to. That'd be good.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to follow you guys and see where you go.
Perfect.
Okay, very good, Spencer. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Great.